This message is not for everyone. This message is for the one who smiled in front of people but cried alone at night, for the one who prayed and wondered why nothing seemed to change, for the one who almost said, "I can't do this anymore." Listen carefully, because if you are still here, still breathing, still listening, God is not finished with you. There are moments in life when difficulties pile up so heavy that even faith feels tired. Bills keep coming, doors keep closing, people walk away, strength fades. And you start asking dangerous questions like, did God forget me? But hear this truth deep in your spirit: God never loses track of His children. Before you reach this valley, God already saw the way out. When Joseph was thrown into the pit, it looked like rejection. When David was running from Saul, it looked like failure. When Lazarus was placed in the grave, it looked like the end. But God does His greatest work when everything looks impossible. You think you reached your breaking point, but breaking points are often birthing points. What feels like pressure is actually God pushing something new into existence. Gold is not destroyed by fire, it is revealed by fire. Some of you are asking, why is heaven silent? Why no answer? Why no sign? Why no relief? Silence does not mean absence. Silence means God is working in ways you cannot see yet. A seed in the ground looks dead, but underground, life is happening. If God answered too early, you wouldn't be ready to carry what's coming. You call it delay, God calls it preparation. You see waiting, God sees strengthening. You feel forgotten, God is building endurance inside you. And let me say this clearly: your tears are not wasted. Every tear you cried in secret is a prayer God collected. Every night you couldn't sleep, God was watching over you. Scripture says God stores our tears. Why? Because tears are seeds, and seeds always bring harvest. You may feel unworthy now. You may feel like you failed too many times. But hear this: calling does not expire because of hardship. You are still chosen, still called, still covered. The storm you're in did not come to destroy you. It came to reveal what's inside you. If the enemy thought you were weak, he wouldn't fight you this hard. Battles are proof of value. Resistance is confirmation of destiny. People laughed, they doubted, they said he won't make it. But God is about to raise you in such a way that your life becomes the testimony. One moment with God can change years of struggle. One word from heaven can restore what pain stole. One breakthrough can rewrite your entire story. So don't quit in the middle of the miracle. Don't walk away just before the door opens. Don't give up when heaven is getting ready to move. Your weakest moment is not your final chapter. Your failure is not your identity. Your difficulty is not your destiny. Hold on, because the same God who carried you this far is about to carry you through. And when you rise, and you will rise, your victory will shock those who counted you out. Silence every voice that mocked your faith, and prove that God never abandons those who trust Him. Even when they almost gave up, God saw you before you fell this low. Before the nights became longer than the days, before the smile on your face turned into a mask, before people looked at you and had no idea how heavy your heart really was, long before the pain introduced itself, God already knew your name, your struggle, and your future. You did not surprise Him with your weakness. You did not shock Him with your tears. You did not disappoint Him with your exhaustion. Think about a parent watching a child learn to walk. The child falls again and again. Does the parent turn away and say, "I didn't expect this"? No. The parent was watching even before the fall, arms ready, heart steady, knowing that falling is part of learning to stand. In the same way, God was watching you before you stumbled, before life pushed you to your knees, before circumstances knocked the breath out of your prayers. Some of you think God noticed you only when you cried out in desperation. But the truth is, God noticed you when you were still strong, when you were still hopeful, when you still believed everything would work out easily. He saw the path ahead. He knew the pressure would come. and he still allowed the journey because he trusted what he placed inside you. When a builder lays the foundation of a skyscraper, it goes deep into the ground. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. People walk past and think the project failed. But the builder knows the depth is necessary for the height that is coming. God saw the height of your calling, so he allowed the depth of your struggle. Every closed door you faced did not catch God off guard. Every rejection letter, every unanswered message, every moment you waited and nothing changed, God was not confused. He was not absent. He was present before the pain arrived. He was present when you first felt hope slipping through your fingers. He was present when you whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Bro, you look at your life now and say, "How did I end up here?" But God looks at your life and says, "I know exactly where you are." A GPS does not. Panic when a driver takes a wrong turn. It recalculates. God is not intimidated by detours. He saw them before you took them. You didn't fall because you were weak. You fell because life is heavy, because responsibility piled up, because expectations crushed you, because you carried burdens you were never meant to carry alone, and God saw it all. He saw the day your strength started to leak out quietly. He saw the moment you stopped talking about your pain because you felt no one would understand, even when you made choices you regret. God saw you before that decision. He knew your fear. He knew your confusion. He knew you were trying to survive, not rebel. Grace was prepared before the mistake happened. A teacher does not abandon a student who struggles. A doctor does not walk away from a patient because the illness is serious. A shepherd does not ignore the sheep that falls into a ditch. God does not abandon you because life brought you low. He saw the fall coming and already planned the rescue. Some of the strongest people are the ones who fell the hardest, because they learned how to depend on God when nothing else worked. When money failed, when people failed, when plans failed. That is when God proves he never fails. You think this season disqualified you, but God saw it as preparation. You think this pain broke you, but God saw it shaping you. You think this low point defines you, but God saw it as a chapter, not the whole story. When a seed is planted, it goes own before it comes up. The seed doesn't know the farmer's plan. It only feels the darkness. But the farmer already saw the harvest before the seed ever touched the soil. God saw your harvest before you felt this darkness. If God saw you before you fell this low, then this low place is not the end. If he saw it coming, he also saw you coming out. If he allowed the valley, he already marked the mountain. If he watched you fall, he is also watching you rise. Even now, when you feel unseen, God's eyes are on you. Not with disappointment, but with purpose. Not with anger, but with compassion. Not asking why you fell, but preparing the strength you need to stand again. There comes a moment in life when you reach a place you never planned to visit. A place where strength runs out, answers disappear, and even prayers feel heavy. This is what people call the breaking point. But what you call breaking, God calls turning. What you see as the end of your ability is the beginning of his intervention. God often waits until you can no longer carry it alone, because only then can you see what he has been carrying for you all along. Think about a glass filled to the brim. One more drop and it overflows. To the eye, it looks like too much, like a mess, like failure. But overflow is not destruction. It is evidence that capacity has been reached. Your breaking point is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you have carried more than most people ever could. God allows you to reach that edge, so you stop trusting your strength and start leaning on his. In daily life, people often realize the value of rest only after their body collapses. A worker ignores fatigue, skips sleep, pushes through pain, until one day the body refuses to move. That moment feels like betrayal, but it is actually protection. The body says enough. In the same way, your soul reaches a moment where it can no longer pretend, smile, or survive on willpower. God uses that moment to redirect your life, not to destroy it. When Moses reached his breaking point in front of the Red Sea, he had no weapons, no plan, and no escape. Behind him was an army, in front of him was water, and inside him was fear. That was not the end of Moses. That was the exact moment God turned panic into a pathway. The sea didn't part when Moses felt strong. It parted when he had nothing left but obedience. At home, a mother juggling responsibilities finally sits down and cries because she cannot do it all anymore. That cry is not weakness, that cry is honesty. And honesty is the doorway to help. God steps in when pretense steps out. When you stop saying I'm fine and start saying I need you, heaven begins to move. Metal is shaped not when it is cold, but when it is heated to its limit. Pressure alone does not transform, but pressure combined with heat reshapes everything. Your breaking point is the heat. God is not crushing you, He is molding you. He knows exactly how much pressure is needed to bring out what He placed inside you. Some people only change direction when they hit a wall. A driver misses every sign until the road ends. That sudden stop feels frustrating, but it prevents a greater disaster. God allows certain roads to end, so you don't keep traveling towards something that would cost you your soul. What feels like a breakdown is often a divine interruption. You prayed when things were manageable, but now you are praying because you have no other option. That is not a downgrade, that is alignment. Desperation strips away ego, it removes pride. It silences self-reliance. At your breaking point, your prayers become real, raw, and powerful because they are no longer rehearsed. When a branch breaks off a tree, it looks useless. But when it is grafted back properly, it becomes stronger than before. God allows certain breaks so He can reconnect you correctly. Some relationships had to break, some plans had to break, some versions of you had to break so the right life could begin. Athletes discover their true strength. At the moment their muscles scream to stop. That final repetition, that last push, is where growth happens. Your spirit grows the same way. When you say, I can't go any further, God says, now let me take over. You may think this breaking point disqualified you, but heaven sees it as the moment you finally let go of control. God does not need your perfection. He needs your surrender. He does not need your plan. He needs your trust. The night is always darkest just before dawn, not because the sun is gone, but because it is about to rise. Your breaking point is evidence that change is close. God is not late. He is precise. He arrives when human effort ends so divine power can be seen. What feels like everything falling apart is often everything falling into place, because God specializes in turning endings into entrances, wounds into wisdom, pressure into purpose, and breaking points into moments where heaven steps in and nothing looks the same again, and the story begins to shift right at the place where you thought you could not take one more step, and all you had left was a whisper. And even that whisper was enough for God to move. There are seasons when you pray and nothing seems to answer back. You speak, but the sky feels closed. You cry, but there is no immediate sign. And the silence feels louder than the pain itself. But heaven is silent only because God is working. Silence is not abandonment. Silence is activity you cannot yet hear. Think about a classroom during an exam. The room is quiet not because nothing is happening, but because everything important is happening. Minds are working, futures are being shaped, answers are being formed. The teacher is silent, not because the teacher has left, but because the moment requires focus. In the same way, God's silence often means He is shaping something too precise to rush. When you place food in the oven, you do not open the door every minute to check. The heat works best in silence. If you interrupt the process, the food never fully cooks. God closes certain doors of noise in your life because what He is doing needs time, not interruption. The silence protects the miracle. A farmer plants a seed and walks away. The ground stays quiet. There is no sound of roots forming. No noise of growth, no visible movement. But underground, life is happening. The farmer does not panic because the soil is silent. He trusts the process. God is the same. Just because you cannot hear Him does not mean He is not moving. There are moments when you send messages and no one replies. You call and no one answers. And it hurts because silence feels like rejection. But God's silence is never rejection. It is direction forming. While you are asking for relief, God is rearranging people, timing, and circumstances so that when the answer comes, it stays. When a doctor performs surgery, the patient is unconscious. The patient feels nothing, hears nothing, sees nothing. But that is when the doctor does the most critical work. God often puts you in seasons where you cannot feel Him because He is working deeply, carefully, and precisely in areas you cannot reach on your own. You say, I prayed, but nothing changed. But sometimes the change is happening inside you before it happens around you. Strength is forming, wisdom is growing, discernment is sharpening. God often works inwardly before He moves outwardly, because external breakthroughs collapse if the inner foundation is weak. A traffic signal turns red and everything stops. Engines idle. Drivers get frustrated, but the stop is not punishment. It is protection. It prevents collision. God's silence often stops you from moving into something that would hurt you later. You think heaven is quiet, but heaven is preventing disaster. When parents stay quiet while watching their child struggle with a problem, it is not because they do not care. They are allowing growth. If they answer every question immediately, the child never learns. God allows silence because growth requires space. Faith matures when it learns to trust without constant reassurance. The hardest silence is when you did everything right and still nothing happened. You obeyed, you prayed, you waited, and still quiet. But obedience does not always produce instant results. Sometimes it produces positioning. God moves pieces you cannot see. He works in conversations you are not part of. He opens doors before you ever knock. When builders construct a strong building, the loudest work happens before anything beautiful appears. Then there is a quiet phase where measurements are checked and foundations settle. That quiet stage determines how long the building will stand. God's silence is often a settling stage, making sure what He gives you will not collapse under pressure. You mistake silence for delay, but God sees it as alignment. You think He forgot the promise, but He remembers it better than you do. He knows the exact moment when silence must break and His voice must be heard. Even Jesus experienced silence before the cross. Heaven did not speak loudly, but heaven was preparing resurrection power. Silence always comes before something greater than what was lost. If God answered too early, you would misinterpret the blessing. If He spoke too soon, you would move before you were ready. Silence matures your ears. So when God finally speaks, you recognize His voice clearly. Every unanswered prayer is not a refusal. Many are a not yet, wrapped in silence. God works when you sleep. He works when you wait. He works when you feel forgotten. Silence is the workshop of heaven, where God shapes outcomes that will leave you speechless when the answer finally arrives and you realize that not hearing Him was part of hearing Him all along. There are moments when time itself feels like an enemy. You look at the calendar and wonder how long you have been waiting. You replay prayers and promises and ask why nothing seems to move. You call it delay. God calls it preparation. What feels slow to you is precise to Him. God is never late, but He is often slow enough to make sure you are ready for what you are asking for. Think about a student waiting for graduation. Years of study feel endless. Exams feel unfair. While the student only sees delay, the process is building knowledge, discipline, and confidence. Handing a degree to someone without preparation would be useless. In the same way, God will not hand you a blessing that would break you. The waiting is not punishment, it is training. In daily life, people rush food and regret it. Undercooked meals cause sickness. But when food is given time, flavor develops and strength builds. God is developing depth in you. Rushed blessings lack stability. Prepared blessings last. A child begs to drive a car, but the parent says no. Not because the parent is cruel, but because timing matters. Strength, awareness, and maturity must come first. God withholds certain things not to deny you joy, but to protect your future. You think He is holding you back, but He is holding you together. Behind the scenes, preparation is happening where you cannot see it. While you wait, God is teaching you patience through inconvenience, humility through closed doors, and trust through uncertainty. You think nothing is changing, but everything is being shaped. An athlete does not step into competition without training. The hours of unseen practice determine the moment of victory. God trains His people in private before He promotes them in public. Delay is the gym where your faith builds muscle. You look at others and feel left behind. They are getting married, advancing, succeeding while you are waiting. But comparison blinds you to purpose. God prepares people differently because He uses them differently. Your pace is not slow, it is specific. Construction sites look messy before they look magnificent. Dust everywhere, noise, chaos. But the builder sees the blueprint. God sees the blueprint of your life. He knows where strength is needed and where patience must be added. Delay is not disorder, it is design. Sometimes God delays because certain people are not ready yet. You are ready, but the situation is not. He prepares environments, hearts, and opportunities to meet you at the right time. You think God is working on you, but sometimes He is working on everything around you. When you bake bread, the dough must rise. You cannot force it. If you do, the bread will be dense and hard. God allows you to rise slowly so when the heat comes, you are light, strong, and ready. Delay teaches you to listen. When everything is fast, you rely on instinct. When everything slows down, you learn discernment. God sharpens your hearing during waiting seasons so you can recognize His voice over noise. You ask God for increase, but increase requires capacity. You ask for influence, but influence demands character. You ask for open doors, but open doors require wisdom to walk through. God prepares capacity before He releases blessing. Even nature understands preparation. Seasons change gradually. Winter prepares the soil. Roots grow deeper. When spring comes, growth looks sudden, but it was built slowly. Your life works the same way. Sudden breakthroughs are born from long preparation. You feel delayed, but God feels intentional. He is aligning timing, strengthening faith, refining motives, and removing distractions. What you can waiting, heaven calls building. What you call delay, God calls preparation. There are tears people see, and there are tears no one ever notices. The tears you wipe before someone enters the room. The tears that fall into pillows late at night. The tears you cry in silence because you don't want to explain your pain again. Those tears are not weakness, they are seeds. And seeds, when placed in the right hands, always bring miracles. In daily life, a farmer knows something others forget. He knows that nothing grows without being buried. The seed must go into the soil, hidden, pressed down, surrounded by darkness. To someone who doesn't understand farming, it looks like loss. But the farmer knows burial is not the end, it is the beginning. Your tears are buried prayers. God plants them where miracles grow. You cry when words fail you, when explanations feel too heavy, when hope feels distant. And you wonder if those tears mean you are losing faith. But tears are often faith speaking when the mouth is too tired. Tears are not silence, they are a language heaven understands perfectly. Think about a mother watching her child struggle. She cries not because she is weak, but because she cares deeply. Her tears come from love. In the same way, many of your tears come from the desire to live, to heal, to become better. God never ignores tears that are born from a sincere heart. In hospitals, doctors know that pain signals something important. Pain reveals what words cannot. Tear. S work the same way in the spirit. They reveal what needs healing, what needs restoration, what needs God's touch. God does not rush past your tears. He reads them. Rain looks like inconvenience to someone trying to walk outside, but to the ground, rain is survival. Without rain, the earth cracks. Without tears, the heart hardens. Tears soften the soil of your soul so something new can grow. You cried when people misunderstood you. You cried when doors closed. You cried when prayers felt unanswered. But heaven saw every drop. Scripture speaks of tears being collected. That means none of them fell uselessly. God does not waste pain, He transforms it. Some miracles are loud, but the greatest ones are born quietly. Strength that returns after grief, peace that replaces anxiety, wisdom that comes from heartbreak. These miracles are watered by tears. The world celebrates smiles, but God honors tears. In everyday life, salt preserves food. Tears contain salt. They preserve what pain tried to destroy. They keep your heart alive when bitterness tries to take over. Tears cleanse. They release toxins the soul cannot carry forever. When a child falls and cries, the crying doesn't push the parent away, it draws the parent closer. Tears invite comfort. Your tears draw God near, not because He needs to be convinced, but because relationship deepens in vulnerability. Some people think miracles come only through loud prayers and strong declarations, but many miracles come through whispers and quiet sobs. Hannah cried silently, and a nation was born. Tears unlocked what words could not. You may feel embarrassed by how much you cried. You may feel ashamed that you couldn't stay strong. But strength is not the absence of tears. Strength is continuing even when tears fall. Tears are proof that you didn't give up on life. In nature, the hardest ground produces the strongest trees, but only after rain softens it. Your heart has been through storms. Your tears soften places pain tried to harden. That softness is where God works best. You didn't cry because you are weak. You cried because you carried more than you were meant to carry alone. You cried because something inside you refused to die quietly. Those tears were resistance. Those tears were hope leaking out. Every tear carries a message. I still care. I still believe. I still want healing. God answers those messages in ways you don't expect. Sometimes the miracle is change around you. Sometimes the miracle is change within you. Tears fall downward, but their harvest grows upward. What drops from your eyes rises as strength, clarity, peace, and purpose. God turns wet eyes into steady hands. He turns crying nights into courageous mornings. You may not see the miracle yet, but seeds never sprout the moment they are planted. They grow in secret. Your tears are working in places you cannot see, producing outcomes you cannot imagine, preparing moments that will one day make you look back and realize that the pain you cried through became the soil where your greatest miracle began. There are moments when life convinces you that you have been disqualified, when mistakes stack up, when people walk away, when doors close again and again. You start believing the lie that you missed your chance. But hear this clearly and let it sink deep into your spirit. You are still chosen, still called, still covered. What happened to you did not cancel what God decided about you. Think about how selection works in everyday life. A coach does not remove a player from the team just because they had a bad game. A teacher does not erase a student's future because they failed one exam. A parent does not stop loving a child because they made a mistake. Yet we assume God, who is greater than all, is quicker to give up on us than humans are. That is not truth. That is fear talking. You were chosen before you were strong. You were called before you were confident. God did not pick you because of your performance, He picked you because of His purpose. Your weakness did not surprise Him. Your struggles did not change His mind. When God chose you, He already saw the entire journey, including the messy parts. In daily life, a valuable item does not lose its worth just because it is covered in dust. Gold buried underground is still gold. A diamond before it is polished is still precious. Life may have covered you with disappointment, shame, or confusion, but your value has not changed. You are still chosen. Some people feel uncalled because they don't see results yet. They confuse calling with applause. But calling often looks quiet before it looks powerful. A seed does not announce itself before it grows. God's calling is not proven by how visible you are, but by how faithful you remain when no one is watching. You may feel forgotten because people stop calling you. You may feel replaced because someone else got the opportunity you wanted. But human rejection does not equal divine rejection. People choose based on convenience. God chooses based on destiny, and destiny does not expire. In workplaces, companies ensure what they value. They protect what matters. In the same way, being covered means you are protected even when you don't feel it. Covered does not mean untouched by trouble. Covered means trouble cannot destroy what God intends to use. You survived things that should have broken you. Situations that could have ended you only shaped you. That survival is not luck, it is coverage. There were moments you should have quit, that something held you together. That something was God's covering. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. The parent lets go, but still runs alongside. The child may wobble, scrape knees, even fall, but the parent never leaves. God's covering works the same way. You fell, but you were never abandoned. Some of you think calling is only for the perfect, the confident, the successful. But throughout history, God used the insecure, the broken, the overlooked. Calling does not require perfection. It requires availability. And you are still here. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. Timing is part of calling. Preparation is part of covering. Delay does not cancel destiny. In life, passports don't change because of bad days. Citizenship doesn't disappear because of failure. In the same way, your identity in God does not change because of a season. You are still chosen when you feel unwanted, still called when you feel directionless, still covered when you feel exposed. You may have walked away for a while. You may have doubted. You may have been tired. But calling does not fade because of distance. Love does not disappear because of silence. God does not revoke purpose because of pain. Covered also means forgiven. Covered means grace is still active. Covered means mercy still speaks louder than mistakes. When you feel exposed, God's covering is closest. You are not standing by accident. You are breathing with purpose. You are still chosen, not because you earned it, but because God decided it. Still called, not because you figured everything out, but because your life has meaning. Still covered, not because you avoided trouble, but because trouble could not take you out. People may define you by your lowest moment, but God defines you by your future. Life may have tried to rename you by your failures, but heaven still calls you by your purpose. What you feel does not change what God has spoken. What you see does not cancel what God has planned. Even now, when you feel unsure, overlooked, or tired, the truth remains steady and unshaken. You are still chosen, still called, still covered. You did not survive this far just to stop here. Every chapter you walked through, every night you cried, every prayer you whispered, every moment you thought you were done, was not evidence of defeat, it was evidence of endurance. You are still standing not because life was easy, but because something greater kept holding you up when your strength ran out. The fact that you are listening right now is proof that your story is still breathing. Remember this truth. Diamonds are not made in comfort. They are formed under pressure. Fire does not destroy gold, it reveals it. Storms do not come to drown eagles, they teach them how to fly higher. What tried to crush you was training you. What tried to silence you was sharpening your voice. What tried to stop you was unknowingly pushing you forward. You may have felt overlooked, but delay never means denial. You may have felt broken, but broken things in God's hands become testimonies. You may have felt forgotten, but heaven never misplaced your name. The same God who carried you through what almost destroyed you is the God who will astonish you with what comes next. There is a version of you on the other side of this struggle that you haven't met yet. Stronger, wiser, calmer, unshakable. Pain introduced you to strength. GTA, you didn't know you had. Waiting taught you patience you never planned to learn. Tears carved space for joy that will arrive deeper and fuller than before. What you thought was the end was only a bend in the road. What you called failure was hidden instruction. What you called silence was divine preparation. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time for the life that is unfolding. Great victories are born in unseen places. Before the crown comes the cave. Before the breakthrough comes the pressing. Before the sunrise comes the darkest hour. But darkness never wins. It only proves the light is close. Stand tall in this truth. You were never meant to break permanently. You were meant to bend, learn, rise, and walk forward with new authority. Your past does not disqualify you. Your mistakes do not define you. Your scars do not shame you. They certify that you survived. When people doubted you, heaven defended you. When doors closed, direction was being protected. When strength faded, grace stepped in. You are still here because purpose is still alive. And if purpose is alive, quitting is not an option. Let your pain become your power. Let your wounds become wisdom. Let your waiting become worship. The same ground where you cried will be the ground where you stand and say, I made it. This is not the chapter where you give up. This is the chapter where you rise quietly, strongly, and steadily. This is the moment you stop asking why it happened and start believing for what is coming. Because what's ahead of you will make sense of what's behind you. Hold your head high. Fix your heart forward. The storm did not defeat you. The fire did not consume you. The silence did not erase you. You are still chosen, still called, still covered. And the best part of your story is no longer behind you. It is unfolding right now.